Welcome to Or Group's Partner Perspectives today, an interview series which highlights our partners' missions, their visionary leadership, and the impact of our collaborations together. I'm Amanda Nelson, Vice President at Or Group, and I'm delighted to be joined by our partners, Sightsavers, today. Anna and Adrian, could you please introduce yourselves, your roles with the organization, and more about the mission and impact of Sightsavers?
Great. Amanda, thank you very much. Let me kick off and introduce myself. My name's Adrian Poffley. I'm the chair of Sightsavers US board. And I've been working with not-for-profit organizations since 1990, so over 30 years now, both in a staff and a board capacity. In my day job, I work in Washington, D.C. I'm an employee of the World Bank Group. I go by this grand title of Chief Administrative Officer, and I've been here for 20 years now, since 2003. So let me tell you a little bit about Sightsavers, a very eminent organization in the United Kingdom. We've been around for about 70 years now, transforming the lives of children, adults, and communities worldwide. And we work in more than 30 countries in Africa and Asia to eliminate avoidable blindness and empower people with disabilities to participate equally in society. We deliver health programs at scale to eliminate blinding trachoma, river blindness, and other debilitating neglected tropical diseases. And we work with national health teams to deliver equitable access to healthcare, including, for example, eye healthcare for conditions such as cataract, so that everyone is part of the national health system. And finally, on the inclusion side of our work, we support women, men, and children with disabilities to access education, health, livelihood opportunities with a focus on gender equality. And everything we do is contributing to those UN Sustainable Development Goals, reducing poverty and increasing opportunities for people living in some of the poorest countries in the world. So that's just a quick summary of what we're about. Anna, over to you.
Thank you. My name's Anna Becker. I've been working with nonprofit organisations for over 20 years, and I've been with Sightsavers for 13 years. I'm the Director of Institutional Funding, which for my team means securing and managing funding from trusts, foundations, corporate and government donors. Just to give a sense of the size of Sightsavers, we've got an annual cash income globally of around $150 million. I'm currently working very closely with Adrian as the chair of the US board to build on our fundraising efforts in the US.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Adrian, so much. I'd like to start our questions today talking a bit more about your industry insights and observations. With the breadth of combined experience in the nonprofit sector that you just spoke to, you've both witnessed significant changes over many years across the landscape. Could you share some of the key trends and opportunities that you've observed and how these insights have shaped your work with Sightsavers? Anna, I'll go to you first.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, from my side, the fundraising landscape's always evolving. I say right now, philanthropy from ultra-high net worth individuals is a real growing area, which we saw ourselves. We had a really substantial donation from Mackenzie Scott last year. So, yeah, for us, it feels great that donors such as Mackenzie Scott and others like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Give Well, and most recently Helmsley, are CS's safe pair of hands. An organisation with a lot of experience that gets results. So, yeah, we want to build on these endorsements to be able to talk to new donors about the breadth of what we're doing, helping to build this future where poverty and inequality are reduced, and see how we can help new donors meet their own goals.
Let me add, Amanda, to that. I think we're also seeing more support for private sector partnerships in development. I think that's been a real development over the last few years. And in our case, for example, funded by USAID, Sightsavers in Kenya, just to give one example, is working with the likes of Coca-Cola, Diageo, East African Breweries Limited, to increase the inclusion of people with disabilities, particularly women, and improve labour rights through their supply and distribution chains. So I think that's very different from the landscape that was in place 20, 30 years ago.
That's a great point, Adrian. to pick on your brain a little bit more, and given your expertise in finance and philanthropy, would love to hear more about your unique perspective at that nexus of finance and global philanthropy. What fuels your continued work at that intersection? And how does this inform your current involvement with Sightsavers as chair of the U.S. board?
It's an interesting question. I think I've got deep roots in public service. I think I grew up in a household with parents who both worked in the public sector, state-funded sector, civil servants and school workers. So it comes from a long way back. So that would be the first thing. The second thing I'd say is there's nothing like being a personal witness to sort of poverty and conditions and the issues which many people around the world that Sightsavers is supporting are facing. And I've had the opportunity over time to travel widely and to, as I say, witness that firsthand. I spent about 15 years in the NGO sector, first of all, before I came to the World Bank. And what's been very interesting for me is to see the degree to which those two, on the face of it, very different sectors actually are trying to address the same issues, and where partnership and collaboration is absolutely critical. And I would say, having worked in the bank now for 20 years, the bank has become a lot more inclusive in terms of its recognition of the role that civil society and organizations like Sightsavers can play. So what fuels me is seeing the work that the executive team, Anna, and her colleagues are doing, where they are working with organizations like the bank in partnership to deliver some of that impact that we mentioned earlier. So that's what fuels me, is continued belief in the power of partnership across the sectors and an opportunity to continue to witness the importance of the work we're doing. There's much still to be done.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Adrian. Anna, I'm going to come over to you, and I have a question for you about leadership challenges and success. And Adrian, if you want to jump in too, go for it. But, with over 20 years of nonprofit experience, Anna, and a deep understanding of health equity and global development sectors, your leadership role at Sightsavers is really impressive. Since joining over 13 years ago, could you tell us about the global growth that you've seen at Sightsavers and the achievements you consider the most significant in your milestones to date? And in getting to those milestones, what challenges did you overcome?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Amanda. So 13 years ago, our income was around $40 million US dollars. And now we're at 150 million. So we've been growing at a really good pace, and using all of that experience that we've built up over the last 70 years, and this increases in funding to get results. So just to kind of talk through a couple of those. So as Adrian mentioned, we work on neglected tropical diseases. We've distributed 1.7 billion treatments to date, and supported the elimination of blinding trachoma in Benin, Gambia, Ghana, Malawi, and Mali. And we're close to adding more countries to that list. So very kind of concrete milestones there. We're also working on river blindness across Africa, and we're estimating that as of last year, more than 11 million people have been freed from the risk of river blindness due to Sightsavers-supported treatments. But we don't just stop at sight. So as Adrian also mentioned, we work with the inclusion of people with disabilities in health, employment, political participation and education, and with that focus on gender. So just to give a couple of examples of that work. So there's a pressing need to reach girls and women with disabilities with equitable and accessible family planning and other sexual and reproductive health services. So our contribution as a disability organisation, we're partnering with health ministries and donors, trying to help large-scale programmes that reach millions of people mainstream disability. We also invest in disability employment. So in many of the countries where we work, as many as 90% of people with disabilities of working age are unemployed. So we're trying to unlock the potential of that group which will have the added bonus of apparently increasing global economy by $6 trillion. We've been providing training for employers, working with micro entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, working with farmers so that they can earn an income as part of sort of big supply chains in those countries that they live in. Lots of impressive milestones, but a big challenge is that there's still an awful lot of unmet needs. We're a really ambitious organisation. There's so much more that we can do if we can secure the funding that we need.
Adrian, those data points are kind of staggering, actually, but it really speaks to that partnership you talked about between sectors and the ability to reach and scale across so many countries across the globe. It's really incredible. I'd love to talk now a little bit more about our work together, actually. We're serving now as a strategic and embedded partner, and we are focusing on helping you grow and sustain that US-based trust and foundation fundraising. Could you share ways in which our collaboration has added value and contributed to your organization's advancement? Anna, would be great to hear from you on this.
Yeah, great. No, it's been wonderful working with OR. We've been working together since November 2022. Our first kind of phase of work was looking at setting out, you working with us to understand our capacities, making recommendations about how we can build new relationships, position the organisation, understanding what we need to do in terms of staff and infrastructure capacities. So, this analysis phase also involved looking at the philanthropic landscape and collecting perceptions of us as Sightsavers from some of our donors, employees, board members. And so off the back of this work, all group determined areas where, we can enhance our US-based foundation, trust and corporate fundraising efforts, created some recommendations for us. So there are kind of a few key areas there. So one of them for us is around transforming our US board to help build and lead fundraising efforts in the US. So that involves supporting our existing board members with this newer aspect of their role and helping to recruit new people onto the board as well. OR's also been supporting my team, to explore relationship and funding potentials from some US entities that we haven't been able to crack yet. And importantly, I think OR's been sense checking our materials, making sure our communications can resonate with the US audience, because there are some cultural differences. We can be a little less direct and maybe understate our achievements a bit. So yes, you've been helping us kind of step outside of our comfort zone on that front.
Amanda, let me just add a couple of quick points here from the board's perspective. And I really want to just salute the partnership, and I think that is the right word here, that we've had with the OR group over these last few months. And I would highlight two contributions which I think I've particularly valued from the OR team. One is expertise, where it's been just terrific to be able to bounce off you and your colleagues your experience and understanding about what works in a US environment, and to be able to pick your brains and to see what other organizations are doing and use the sort of frameworks which you have got and the logical thinking which you've got to help us think about how we tackle the challenge that we're facing. So that would be number one. And number two, in particular, I want to stress the knowledge of the US sector which you bring here, and recognize that whilst we've had a presence here in the US for many years now, actually, I still think we're relatively inexperienced in terms of understanding fully US philanthropy and what's going to maximize our chances of success here. And so to have your expertise and experience alongside us as we develop our fundraising strategy going forward has been really just outstanding. Thank you very much to you and the team.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, Anna. And it's been such a pleasure working with you. And I know we worked really hard to not just make recommendations of be more American. I guess my last question here, and I really appreciate that again, and it's been for us a really big learning experience too about getting to know UK organizations with this global footprint. So appreciate this partnership and opportunity to help build your working knowledge of the US philanthropy market as well. The last question that I have for you today is around any insights you'd like to share for other nonprofit leaders and executives. So Adrian, your unique leadership and nonprofit experiences make you a valuable resource for other leaders in the global philanthropic space. What key pieces of advice would you offer to fellow executives and volunteer leaders who are striving to achieve impact at their organizations?
So I've been involved with Sightsavers for over 25 years now, so I've seen it grow very markedly over that time. And I would highlight a few things here. Firstly, focus. I think the organization has always had a really strong focus on what it's there to do and what added value it can bring. I think that is critical. I think it's always felt very accountable for what it does with the money that it receives from its donors. And I think that's critical. That we've exhibited that openness and transparency and willingness to explain what happens to people's contributions that they give to us. I think the third element I'd say is a continual drive from the top. I think if you look at the way Anna, a chief executive, and the other leaders of the organization work, there is terrific drive that is necessary because it's hard work. You've got to inject urgency and sustain impact over many, many years. So I think those are crucial factors. But then I want to focus on the staff because I think what has been just wonderful to see in Sightsavers over many years is the quality of staff that we've been able to attract. And the power of a really good employee proposition, which is around saying, look at the mission of this organization, look at the contribution you can make. Let's find interesting, stimulating work and opportunities for you where you can take responsibility and make a real difference. And I think that has been a consistent theme since I've become involved in Sightsavers. So I'd finish by saying, look after your staff because I think they are what it's all about. And I think Sightsavers has done that remarkably well. You have to be ambitious. I sit there and look at what we were achieving 20 years ago and I'm staggered. That it was very impressive then. And I'm staggered by the success that Anna and the team have had in just standing on the shoulders of the people who went before them and actually just taking it to another level. And it's through that ambition that's coupled with a really good understanding of what's possible that means we've had the success we've had. And finally, I think you must celebrate success. And there have been some remarkable successes, and it could well be in the course of our lifetime that we see the elimination of one or more of the principal causes of blindness. And wow, isn't that something to celebrate? And I think helps everyone continue to stay as motivated and involved in Sightsavers as they are. Right. So those would be my thoughts.
Thank you, Adrian, for those very wise and applicable words for our audience here today and for me. Again, our group has had, it's just been really incredible partnering with Sightsavers and being a little tiny piece of this and hopefully growing more impact through philanthropy here in the U.S. And you guys have just been great partners, and the staff, the leadership, everyone, really, really impressive. I totally agree with all of that, Adrian. So thank you both for being here today, Anna and Adrian, and sharing a little bit more about our work together and your insights. We really appreciate it. And again, we really appreciate this partnership and look forward to our continued work together.
Amanda, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amanda.